What's going on, guys? It's the Unhinged Engineer here, back with episode 19 of my grad school vlog. So if this is your first episode of this, welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about what's new in my video game AI course, which I'm taking as part of my Master's in Science of Computer Science at Georgia Tech, that I'm doing online while continuing to work my full-time job. And so if you have been following along with the vlog for a while, you'll know that this class has been a little bit less eventful than the previous one I took, which is more about robotics. But, you know, we're still chugging along. Semester is kind of nearing the end, and so I wanted to make sure I keep you guys updated on what's going on. Also, we do have a good amount of stuff to talk about today because I was running a little bit late on this upload, so apologies for that. But enough beating around the bush, let's just get right into what's new with the course. So, talking about assignments briefly, there have been two that I completed since my last video. Number one was about ballistic projectile aiming, I guess, for lack of a better word. That was actually pretty cool. I mean, I think they kind of over-stressed like high school level kinematics. Those were things that I wasn't really in the mood to reiterate, but I mean, they did do a good job. And then more importantly, they talked about like iterative methods and different ways you can tackle this problem of, you know, I'm a video game agent and I'm trying to aim at the player or aim at another agent or whatever else. And so, you know, it was a pretty straightforward project. I didn't really have any performance considerations to worry about on my computer, although that was something that was taught a lot about in the lectures, which is obviously interesting and useful for the real world. But yeah, overall, it was just kind of a straightforward assignment. Got a grade that I'm pretty happy with, and yeah, it's really simple as that. The next assignment after that was a little bit less straightforward, but also more interesting, and it's called Prison Dodgeball. And basically, you have two teams of agents playing dodgeball against one another, and they're all controlled using finite state machine logic, right? So the agents can be kicked into different states, and depending on what state they're in, they have different priorities and respond to occurrences in the game in different ways, right? So finite state machine, if you worked on any like, you know, live real world systems like, you know, aerospace vehicles, robotics, whatever else, you're probably very, very familiar with finite state machines. And I think they did a pretty good job of talking about how they're used in this obviously niche application that is video gaming. And so what we had to do was actually take a finite state machine that they provide you and is relatively bare bones, right? So it doesn't account for more complicated things like, you know, I have two teammates and they're going for a ball, like which one grabs the ball, when do they aim, like when do they throw versus play defense, when do they try to rescue each other from prison, because, you know, like in dodgeball, if you get tagged, you're in prison, then your teammates can get you back in. So all that like advanced behavior isn't really there, and so you have to implement that behavior within the confines of a finite state machine, as well as like, you know, adding other states if you think they're necessary, which I definitely did. And so if you've ever worked with finite state machines before, that's actually like a pretty realistic workflow, unless you're really working at like a startup and you're just kind of sending it from the very beginning, you have no code to work from. Usually you're plugging into some kind of state machine system in ways that achieve a certain goal that you have, right? Or changing it to achieve that goal more effectively. And so I thought that was actually like a really smart move on their part, and as a result, I thought the assignment was pretty good. So I did really well on that assignment, pretty happy with it. Wasn't a ton of work, but the work I did have to do was actually pretty fun. I take that back. It was more work than the Ballistic Projectiles assignment. Overall, it was good. It was a good experience. I definitely learned a bit, even if it wasn't the most like technically advanced material I've ever done, right? But yeah, that was good stuff. And then the next assignment I have to do is on fuzzy logic. So I think they're moving away from the kind of dodgeball paradigm that the Ballistic Projectiles and the finite state machine assignments used. I think it's something new with like a racetrack. I haven't really looked into it much. But we actually do have more time to do this assignment versus the other ones. I think it's like 2 weeks, mainly to give time for the extra credit with like the prison dodgeball tournament. To be honest with you, I don't really plan on participating in that tournament much, but I think it's always a good thing to offer extra credit, and I appreciate that they do that. And it seems like students are getting involved in reading through edX, and people are getting pretty competitive, which is good. But honestly, to be transparent, I don't have the bandwidth to go above and beyond for extra credit right now. And as far as I'm concerned, I should be able to get an A. I'm actually like sitting right at a 90.5, so I'm definitely cutting it close between an A and a B, but I've heard there's curves. I also, as I'll talk about shortly, didn't do as well on the previous quizzes as I hope to do on the future ones. And yeah, you know, we're still within bounds, so hopefully we can pull it off. And at the end of the day, I've never really been a 4.0 motivated person, so I think as long as I do well in the class and I get something out of it, worst case scenario, I get a B, so it's not gonna keep me up at night, right? So yeah, that's everything going on with assignments. In terms of quizzes, this I think I kind of made a mistake on my part. I decided to try to bang out all the quizzes on one day. As you could probably tell if you're in the course, like you're supposed to do them as you go through the damn lectures. I don't know why the hell I didn't do that. I think I just kind of took advantage of the July 22nd deadline for all of them. And as a result, I just kind of like tried to bang them all out one day. And I didn't do as well as I should have. I was getting like, 80s and 85s when if I put a little bit more effort and given myself a little bit more time, I could have gotten like 90s and 100s, right? That said, that the quizzes did seem superfluous in general. I mean, I don't think they were unfair in any way, but kind of like with the robotics course, it kind of just seemed like they were there because they have to be there. I disagree with that philosophy that every course is supposed to have like some kind of quiz or assessment, multiple choice thing. I just think that's kind of silly, but as far as silly requirements for courses and degrees, I think this program is really good about keeping it lean and mean. So if they're not perfect about it, it is what it is. So yeah, I took quizzes on pretty much everything, going all the way back to the beginning, with the first assignments we did on like nav meshes, discretizing space, getting a little bit into ballistic projectiles, and not as much into decision making because that's kind of the next batch of quizzes I'm going to do. But it was mostly about path networks, grid cells, nav meshes. Some of the visualizations in the quiz were a little strange. I don't know why they didn't just use the Unity setup that they provided us, and I thought was really great for the assignments we had. But overall, I thought they were fine, and I just kind of messed them up. So it is what it is. Gotta take some responsibility there. I guess now's a good time for overall thoughts on the course. As I've said before, and I don't anticipate this opinion changing. I think for what it's worth, it's fine. It's not really the most interesting course, I'd say. But I do think that if you peer a little bit more into it, you can get some good value out of it. And as I'm going through these lectures, even when I'm watching them on like fast forward or whatever, there are bits and pieces of it that like, even if they're not stressed in the assignments, are really useful and interesting, especially in the context of like computational performance, right? Because if you've played video games, they're like a chonker. They just absolutely set your PC on fire if you're not careful. And so that's how we get like Call of Duty games that are 400 gigabytes, right? Which is just insane. So talking about like memory optimization, speed optimization, floating point issues, I think that's honestly been the best part of the course. That, and then also learning C#. Like I think as a C++ programmer, working on C++ in like the aerospace field, I always thought like C# is kind of this black box of like, oh, that's front end stuff, that's weird video game development, front end networking, whatever. I have nothing to do with that. And thinking it was radically different. I'm sure at the end of the day, like under the hood, there are lots of differences I'm probably not getting exposed to, but I do think overall, like there's been a lot of value in writing the language, reading the language, working within a game engine. That's been huge. So I do think there's like some good value to it. And at the end of the day, it's not really the hardest course. I think if it was like hammering me for 20 hours a week, I'd be pretty pissed because it would just be like a waste of energy. But I think for the amount of energy that you have to put in, which isn't a ton, it is a good course, and I definitely don't regret taking it, even if I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to everybody. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on the class. I will have no such issues with it being too easy next semester because I have officially locked in computational photography as my next class. That will be pretty interesting. I'm a little nervous about taking my first like real hardball class. It's a main requirement for my specialization. I've heard it can take up to 20 hours a week. So it'll probably be the hardest class I've taken thus far. However, I think I've worked with or at least adjacent to most of the topics that they're going to be stressing as part of the assignments. I think the assignments seem really cool. I've read lots of stuff about implementing things from papers and whatnot, so that's cool. And I am just pumped about this subject matter as a whole. Like it's something I'm going to be able to use for work. It's something I think is really valuable. It's related to computer vision, which I've done before, but it's a little bit different, which I'm glad because I don't want to just rehash things I know pretty well from having a couple years of experience as a computer vision engineer. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it, even if it's a little intimidating. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I will keep you guys tuned with the whole vlog and everything. But yeah, so that is officially locked in. That will be our next course, a little bit of a next course assignment, announcement there, excuse me. So, okay, I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to cut the video here. If this is your first one with us, thank you so much for watching. I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I make professional development content for STEM professionals like me, usually earlier on in their career, or even still in school, or just trying to learn how to navigate this engineering career space that is so freaking strange, as I'm sure you've noticed. In addition to that, as you can probably tell, I'm vlogging my grad school journey as I go to school at night while working full time. So I usually try to upload once every week, or a couple times every week to a week and a half. Obviously, that schedule changes as this video has demonstrated, but yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Again, please like, comment, subscribe. Especially comment if you have thoughts on this course or other ones I might be taking. I would love to get input from other students in the course. If any of you are watching, hello. And yeah, I will see you in the next episode.